My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. That's all ILA. And it is currently 7:53 a.m. So what I'm documenting right now is an ongoing sex offense that Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ 740, and apartment number 51 at facilitating venue Woodside Senior Apartments, where the documentation of a fake sun, because the natural environment does not include the presence of the sun both rising and setting at one address, like my documentation proves, okay, as a matter of objective evidence that anyone in the world can look at, published on YouTube and published on my website. But this is the P.O.C. And as she walks in and out of the apartment, again, she's monitoring. As she opens the door, this is just like pacing in and out. This is ongoing stalking with light activity. It's a sex offense. This is all criminal facilitation. They're going to asylum. She's gang stalking with the demon in 55. And she walks out at 7:50 in the morning. The demon picks up stomping as this demon walks out of the apartment. This demon walks out of the apartment monitoring what I'm doing online, which is looking at evidence referencing efforts of criminal defamation by the state while gang stalking, which I'm documenting, remains underway. This is, again, mental illness being exhibited. This is light activity. This is pacing. And what is engineered light that you saw fanned across the ceiling, now the light activity is different. That's impossible light activity. That's gray colored light, not sunlight. Nor does sunlight come underneath a door and travel across the ceiling. In addition to that, what you will see is engineered light right here on the wall in the dark. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the lights. What you saw was a desperate act of a demon who is engaged in criminal monitoring. That's the documentation of the state of California engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. It is the evidence to remove Paul Leon from office. It is the evidence to disband the Ontario Police Department. It is the evidence to place all of the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments in units 33 through 64, every single last one of them, are going to federal prison. Tracy Banks is going to a mental asylum based on her exhibited and long documented mental illness that is that of a psychopath, not one that is criminally insane such that she cannot appreciate the criminality and the lawlessness of her behavior. She acts with malice, which is exactly what you saw exhibited as she walks in and out of an apartment filled with engineered light. That's engineered light. That's not sunlight. You see the same light around this door frame in the middle of the afternoon while the fake sun is sitting stationary over this apartment building for the duration of the day. That's speaking to everything, by the way, that's going on at this apartment complex for duration of day and night. Now, while this demon who is monitoring what I'm doing on my phone, she immediately walks back in. Now, what is triggering to this demon is that I'm on YouTube, which is being monitored, my internet activity, and as I'm viewing evidence well, it's not evidence, I'm viewing internet content, that in the subject of the video, this is typed out in the document that's going to be published to the Google Drive, because I maintain documentation regarding psychological torture, which AVANATH Capital Management is going to compensate me for. They are gang stalking, and that is evidence for damages that AVANATH is also going to compensate me for. While they're gang stalking employees, they're gang stalking residents, and while their property itself is a means of criminal facilitation of the criminal conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone, where federal group stalking and monitoring by the state of California, that is the city of Ontario, is underway. And that's exactly what's happening in engineered light that's inside of an apartment building that remains plastered on a living room wall, both in the dark, early in the morning, in the evening, and throughout the duration of the day while the fake sun remains stationary. It's not sunlight. Neither is the gray skies creating any sort of gray colored or bright sunny colored light. It's engineered light that appears, and that you saw while the door was cracked, it was fan, you saw the lines of light. That's all impossible light activity. It's engineered light. It's demonic while that demon walks in and out of her bedroom. This is a gang stalking mother who's a violent sex offender, has been engaged in practicing sexual violence as a witch that is engaged in witchcraft. I want you to be clear. Witchcraft relies on sexual violence, relies on sexual activity. Those that do not consent, those that are also underage with regard to what's legally relevant, they are engaged in sexually violating children, sexually violating those that do not consent. This is how Satan, who uses people who are demon possessed, in other words, that practice witchcraft, this is how they are deceived by Satan, and they are quote unquote deriving spiritual power. It's the practice of witchcraft. This is a sex offender who's going to be incarcerated into a mental asylum, and she's gang stalking with the demon in number 55, who is not going to work, unemployed, and the state of California, the city of Ontario, is financing domestic terrorism, which also AVANATH Capital Management. All I'm speaking of are all of the intersections of the federal prosecution of the state, civilly and criminally. It is not a coincidence in engineered light under the fake sun, and also, as you have seen, under the fake moon that remains over me at Woodside Senior Apartments, that the entity is maintaining what is an ongoing harassing environment, which is technically referred to as amplified audible activity. As this demon Tracy Banks walks out in engineered light, which is molesting my breast, I want you to be clear, walking out of the front door is creating sunlight that's bending around in order to touch on my breast here. That's impossible light activity. It's also impossible while it shoots through a doorway underneath. Okay, the sun that's above the building does not cause sunlight to bend underneath that doorway and enter into the depths, but I capture on a daily basis. But also remember the light that you just saw. Not only does it bend into the depths on the floor, on the ground, but also on the ceiling. All of that is occurring right now through it, which is what is gray colored engineered light. And while I'm on my phone documenting in text, the demon Tracy Banks walks back in because she's monitoring, and she's also aware of the fact of the content of what I'm documenting. And so she takes it upon herself to pace in and out of the apartment, turn on the kitchen light. This is all light activity while a demon is pacing around. All she was doing was monitoring. The significance of monitoring is it is in furtherance of the state's conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone. It is not small, minor at all. This is ongoing impunity while they're doing it, while you are documenting it. This is all state conduct as well. Domestic terrorism that no mayor shall remain in office while it's happening. This is the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct. The demon in unit number 55 is stomping. That's amplified audible activity. The demon you've seen walking, gang stalking in plain view for the federal government to identify under the fake sun sitting on the roof, that's the demon that's intentionally stalking with audible activity. She does not care about the fact she's going to be incarcerated in an asylum and all the rest of the defendants are going to prison with her. That's the mental illness of the demon possessed, who are engaged in domestic terrorism. Her license plate is 5WUB715. A plethora of documentation putting all of the demons, Woodside Senior Apartments, AVANATH Capital Management, and the demon possessed who have been documented coming onto the grounds of this property in all of the federal facilities that are substantiated, supported by the evidence. This is speaking to the prosecution of the state, not just the demons that are living at a senior citizen complex, not sleeping, not working, gang stalking. Tracy Banks remains a part of the entity and is monitoring while she goes to work. It does not matter where you're going while you are residing at the specific environment, you're going to prison. Everybody living in units 33 through 64, and they also act with impunity while evidence is underway. The demon in 55 acting on behalf of that entity with full knowledge is still engaging in what is the elements of monitoring, for which I want to be clear, they're doing so while they're monitoring evidence, and it's relevant what the demons are triggered by. Remember, I am the target. I am the focal point. I am the source of obsession. The demon possessed are picking up activity creation, begin pacing and molesting my breast with that which is not even naturally occurring. Engineer light in a gray sky. That you're already reaching with regard to, and by reaching I mean you are engaging in extravagant and you are engaging in what is extraordinarily impossible, that is absurdly ridiculous conduct of keeping a fake sun stationary, let alone it streaming across the ceiling, reaching around into the depths of an apartment and reaching around to touch all over my body while I'm on the couch inside of an apartment. Sunlight does not do that. You're doing it, not only is that occurring, you're doing it while it's a gray sky, meaning the fake sun doesn't arrive for about another 35 minutes. Okay, the entity is doing so because I'm documenting it, and it is relevant what I am doing online while they are monitoring. This is relevant to not only Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. It is because they're monitoring internet on a communication device. It's also relevant the content. What is it that I'm looking at that while the demons are spying and stalking and monitoring, what is it that they're triggered by? And they're triggered by video content that's referencing the fact that my life, my documentation, in other words, the way that I actually am and the way that I actually conduct myself, the way that I'm able to document, by the way, and articulate my thoughts and feelings and experiences and what the entity is doing, contrasted with what the entity is criminally misrepresenting in courts that are going to be prosecuted for their engagement in what is the exercise of fictitious authority while they are at the same time gang stalking. Now, the content is referencing how one's good character outweighs all of the lies. What lies would be relevant? Or perhaps the lies that Tracy Banks has communicated in courtrooms in the state of California. And everybody participating in such criminal acts committed by the state that is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, they're all going to federal prison. Every single attorney, every single court reporter, every single judge, everybody getting on the stand, everyone speaking and participating in it is engaged in the conspiracy and furtherance of malicious murder and kidnapping. Understand the purpose of gang stalking. While I am looking at videos on YouTube that are particularly triggering, especially when it's relevant to evidence that's sitting on the record regarding what is the criminal motive of demons such as Tracy Banks and the demon inside of apartment number 55 to engage in ongoing psychological torture because of what they are monitoring on the internet that's relevant to the criminal conduct that they have engaged in. I have already documented the entity gang stalking and in the morning time. This is gray skies. Okay, there's no sun yet. Okay, there's no sun ever because the entity has a fake sun that sits on from this part of the building until this part of the building, and that is over 8 hours. Nonetheless, it's the evidence that's going to prosecute the entire property, Woodside Senior Apartments, the city of Ontario, the state of California. While you open the door, engineer light is not going to, first of all, wrap in, cause light on the door in the dark. And it's also not going to be that which is molesting my breast, but it is engineer light in conformity to a pattern of conduct, both in the presence and in the absence of the fake sun. And that engineer light that I'm documenting, that you saw fanned across the ceiling, I've also documented it. Let me open the door so you can see. I've also documented the engineer light coming through the peephole. Now, the fact that it is gone is evidence is evidence corroborating the fact that, first of all, it's never occurring. The sun being over the venue does not support light shooting through the peephole, nor does a gray sky ever create engineer light shooting through a peephole. And the fact that I have that evidence sitting on the record, which I will take screenshots of, and you can look at it in the Google Drive. It's already on the record. The absence of it is speaking to that again, an inconsistent maintenance of a specific environment that is literally the supernatural evidence against the state of California. The fact that in other words, a witch coven is the state of California that is engaged in criminal targeting, criminal surveillance. It is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring, where the demon possessed are engaged in what is domestic terrorism. And it is evidence through the maintenance of a demonic environment, things that are impossible to naturally occur. I just so happen to have had the presence of mind to document it, and it equals federal prison for everybody living around me. This is a private space. The entity is also engaging in the perpetual sex offense by virtue of living around at a facilitating venue, not a private residence. while the entity is engaged in 24-hour harassment, stalking, that's psychological torture, because it's an engineered light, pursuant to what I do on the internet, pursuant to what it is that I'm doing physically, and pursuant to even as I sleep and what I think about. Remember, the demon possessed are monitoring. These are demons who are being used by people. So you have a demon possessed psychopath who doesn't understand the significance of everybody at gang stalking with you. They're all going to prison for what this demon cannot seem to control, which is her stomping. Everybody's going to prison for that. It's in furtherance of murder and kidnapping by the state, who is engaged in criminal defamation, which Tracy Banks knows all about. And that's why these demons are particularly triggered by my YouTube content that is also relevant. That's why I take pictures of what it is that I'm looking at on the internet when the demons engage in what is ongoing monitoring, psychological torture, while they are providing evidence that they are monitoring, which is surveillance by the state of California. Understand how their conduct equals what is the materialization of criminal activity in the natural that is going toward what is state action, that is acting through a bunch of demon-possessed gang stalkers. Tracy Banks remains engaged in the pattern of conduct at all times. Going to work will not remove you from your criminal engagement in the P.O.C. And by the way, you're dealing with the demon-possessed who know what you're doing both in your presence and outside of your presence. This is the criminalization of that demonic conduct, which employs many things that are supernatural. My capturing the P.O.C., which is in other words, criminalizing the state's use of what is an entirely demonic environment and demon-possessed people to psychologically torture an American citizen in order to criminally defame that person, if not murder them and kidnap them and place them unjustly in a facility while they're all demons targeting someone. That's literally, put in plain terms, what the state of California is doing at Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street in Ontario, California. So this light that you see is sitting in the dark. This is what I have already documented coming through a peephole. You can't see my hand right here. Let me turn the light on. I've documented. Oh, we've got a little trickster here. She's put something in the peephole. So let me take this out, because the demon knows that I document engineer light coming through a peephole, which is a scientific impossibility. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So this is engineer light shooting through a peephole, and this is the things putting. Let me document that. The little piece of paper that the demon puts in the peephole. That's because the demon knows that I'm documenting her. Okay, so the light's on. This is never the product of sunlight during the day. It's never the product of what is a gray sky. Okay. The entity that is the Ontario International Airport, that is the state of California, is amplifying plane activity. That's impunity. That's why the Ontario airport is going to be shut down. The Ontario Police Department is going to be disbanded. The Ontario Fire Department, full of demons, gang stalking using fire trucks and a fire station, a waste of money in the city that is used as a means of criminal surveillance, and the demons who are obsessed. Ongoing criminal conduct while you're being documented and the feds are going to prosecute you is evidence of the demon possessed who are obsessed. That's a criminal threat to your life, to an American citizen's existence, and their liberty and well-being and right to not be subject to it, while the demons cannot help themselves because they continuously use city resources to engage in criminal conduct. And that's what's relevant with regard to amplified plane activity and engineered light in concert with the people of the state. They're all going to federal prison as well. While the state is gang stalking with planes, the people are going to federal prison. While the entity is gang stalking through the residents, these people are going to federal prison. While the entity is gang stalking through all the residents and the employees and the people that come on the property and fly over the property, AVANATH Capital Management is going to compensate for damages. That's how that works. It is currently, I want to be clear, while you see engineer light coming through, engineer light is molesting my breast. This is not sunlight. All right. And this is the light activity that remains through this peephole in the presence and in the absence of the fake sun. Sunlight is never going to shoot through a peephole under any circumstances. This is the evidence of what Tracy Banks is doing. She's gang stalking her own daughter. Mentally unstable psychopaths like Tracy Banks present a threat to themselves and the American public. She's going to be placed into a mental asylum. And the fact that you're capturing amplified audible activity, ongoing pacing, molestation via engineer light, this is all psychological torture, as my body is being violated for criminal purposes. And then the entity has the audacity to falsely depict your character in court hearings that I have no part of, no knowledge of. That's also by design. There are many laws that shall change based on what the state of California has been practicing as a system, so that no one else can be subject to the criminal engagement of trying to steal property belonging to a target individual, criminally defame a target individual, while they seek to gang stalk you at the same time and falsely depict your character in those corrupt courthouses. I want to be clear, this is all triggered by what the entity is monitoring, and that is my YouTube content. I'm looking at videos on YouTube, and as I'm looking at videos that happen to have titles that are in reference to the criminal activity activity that the entity has engaged in. That's why I take pictures of it, pay attention to. I'm talking to the feds right now. You're paying attention to the subject matter of what it is that I'm viewing, because I am always the focus. What it is that I'm doing is the focus. What it is that I'm viewing, what am I documenting? What am I thinking about? What am I dreaming about? That is what's triggering the demons who are monitoring. And those demons are flying planes in Ontario. Those demons are working for the police department in Ontario. Those demons are working for the fire department. Those demons are working for the municipality. Those demons live and work in the city of Ontario. This is a massive prosecution of the city of Ontario. And I want to be clear, all gang stalking immigrants are hereby being documented as well. The entity that is acting as one shall be prosecuted accordingly. And then each one will stand in court, and under your name, all of that criminal conduct that you have participated in as an entity is going under your government name, and you will be prosecuted. And if you are caught gang stalking as an immigrant, you're out of this country. It is currently 8:11 a.m. This is P.O.C. It is currently January 18, 2025 at 12:14 p.m. This is documentation of the people of the state who are engaged in psychological torture while they are gang stalking with the city of Ontario. That is the state of California. And it is in the established and proven existence of the specific environment where the fake sun remains stationary over me for the duration of the day while inside of unit number 51. And so while I have exited apartment 51 and walked to the far gate of the entrance of the parking lot, the fake sun has departed from that stationary position, which I've also captured at 3 and 4, 5 o'clock in the evening. This is the P.O.C. license JPOWERS 8934U. That's a handicap plate. 5WUB 715 is the demon that is the chief means of amplified audible activity. She drives a red Tribute Mazda. She's going to a mental asylum. The people of the state in units 33 through 64 are going to federal prison. Tracy Banks is going to a mental asylum as well. She is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring while she is physically away from the facilitating venue, remaining engaged in federal stalking under Title 18 and remaining a part of the entity where it's acting corporately to maintain criminal surveillance on behalf of the state. While the entity maintains ongoing amplified noise inside of the apartment, this is ongoing psychological torture while the entity is gang stalking by amplified planes. And the people of the state who are delivering groceries from Walmart, as I documented, with simultaneity to the use of my phone as I open up the door, and I'm showing you the fake sun that's present over the same building at 8 o'clock in the morning, rising at the same venue in alignment to the apartment at 7:18 in the morning. It's currently again 12:16 p.m. Daylight savings time or not, you're giving away giving and taking 1 hour. None of this is reconcilable with regard to as well the fake sun that's remaining over me while I'm at work and living at Alvarado Gardens at 1800 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California, where LAPD were engaging in the city of LA. Mayor Karen Bass, the demons who are currently putting out fires that the entity used all money, millions of dollars and resources of the same gang stalkers who are now putting out fires in Los Angeles County. This is what they are engaging in Los Angeles, and this is what continuously the state is engaging in while I'm at Woodside Senior Apartments, where there would never be any sun anywhere in Los Angeles or over Alvarado Gardens. License 6CHL971. The entire property is filled with 144 units, and the entire property is going to be prosecuted. The employees, including Linda Reyes, the manager of a facilitating venue, she's going to prison, okay? And so is every other employee in the demons and units, again, 33 through 64, who are pacing in real time right now in the specific environment, walking, monitoring, and doing so on behalf of the state, which is in furtherance of the criminal conspiracy to murder and kidnap someone. That's why a state is gang stalking. The impunity that I'm documenting in the specific environment is the evidence that's putting everybody in prison. So I'm documenting the people of the state via license plate. I've already documented this before. It's supplemental to what the federal government has and will the entity will produce, but they are indeed going to federal prison, the demons in units 33 through 64. License 7VCK397-549TA, that's Apple. The people of the state, units 33 through 64, I believe this is the demon in particular in unit number 46 or 47. That is crossing path, the Latino male. He's documented with the ears that poke out a lot, very skinny Latino male, gang stalking with Ontario PD at night in directed light and gang stalking with the entity during the day under the fake sun. This is impunity while the entity is gang stalking on more than one occasion. It is impunity. License 9CKS542, 6YGM131, 9HRS967, 8WEY298. That is while I'm documenting on my podcast. The demon walks right by, gang stalking in plain sight. They do the same thing with the police in real time. License MW904 handicap. The demon that's walking her dog with the Ontario police, and the demon living in unit 41, documented the other evening, is crossing path, and I'm going to read her license plate. She's going to prison, 8 MUB 992. I believe she lives in the units between 33 through 64, so she's already subject to prison. She's currently gang stalking right now. I'm crossing path under the fake sun, 9 MSJ 525, license 7 PWU 252. The license plate of the third party documented on several occasions, living in the units between 33 through 64, which is requiring federal prison. Her license is 325 LMH. This is Oregon plate. Caucasian woman walking 2 dogs. License 9HNW373. License 6A42707. 8FAF 951. 9ZER072. 34809. That's a handicap plate. UCRISLA. 7X82385. I'm going to go ahead and capture the fake sun while I am standing at the entrance facing G Street, where there is no time that the sun is capable of being over Tracy Banks's front door, but that's exactly where it's going to be at when I walk back to her apartment, which is showing how a population that's in that environment is stalking together. And they are engaged in, the city of Ontario is engaged in psychological torture, and doing so as a desperate means. The entity is facing prison, it's facing prosecution for domestic terrorism, and the mental illness of the entity is that which is causing an American citizen to suffer. So that is, the entity is engaging in more and more psychological tactic efforts. And Engineer Light, Exhibit A, license 9NMB968. Impossible light moves across the gate, which is impossible to occur naturally while you're just driving your car. Neither is the sun going to be over Woodside Senior Apartments while it's stationary over Monrovia at Courtyard in Monrovia, Courtyard by Marriott, in Monrovia, California, or over Alvarado Gardens over the top of my head at my apartment at my front door, facing the hillside, and over my head at the office, my leasing office in between buildings 1810 and 1806 at North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles. This is the specific environment. Again, that's license 9NMB968. Impunity, while documented, and they're engaged in Title 18 federal stalking, is an independent basis for federal prison. It's not just living at the venue, and it's not just gang stalking with the police. Again, license plate, who's crossing path with Engineer Light as well, with the 2 dogs, gang stalk with Ontario PD, living in units 33 to 64, 325 LMH, Oregon. All right, I just want to be clear, I'm going to capture the fake sun right now. The entity is crossing paths with that Engineer Light while they listen to me document. The mental instability exhibited by the demon possessed causes them to engage in a pattern of conduct, and it includes more terrorism, more psychological torture tactics while you expose them in evidence that's already sitting on the record. It is that which they have already been caught engaging in. And the mental illness is also exhibited in the same way. The demon in Unit 55 acting on behalf of this whole entity that's gang stalking outside. They're all gang stalking via the demon. That's a means of amplified audible activity, and that's why the entity is acting. The state is being prosecuted. The mayor is being exposed as a domestic terrorist leader in the city of Ontario while it's underway in the city, which is, by the way, also established by evidence that has been existing as of 2018. But I'm going to show you the fake sun that's remaining over me while a demon drives to this portion of the parking lot to maintain criminal presence in the path. This is a Latino male in parking space number 43 with that license plate while crossing path, and Engineer Light appears on the black gate. Okay, this is P.O.C. It is currently 12:21 p.m. Okay, it's currently 12:22 p.m. and what I've already captured in a wealth of evidence, because this is how you ever have the sun over me in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm at Courtyard by Marriott in Las Vegas, Nevada, off of Dean Martin. I'm at the entrance. The fake sun is in its zenith over the top of my head at 12:08 p.m. This is during daylight savings time, so that will be 11:08 a.m. I've already shown you the fake sun at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California, from rise until set. That's how you get that, because this is not the sun, and this is evidence of a population that is stalking, and it is also demonic. The people that are stalking are demonic, and the environment is demonic. It's also exhibiting malice while they engage in things such as stalking with noise, which is the entity acting via the demon in Unit 55 who's going to a mental asylum and is acting on behalf of the manager who's going to prison, Linda Reyes, and all of the employees that are working at Woodside Senior Apartments, all of whom are gang stalking, and also one of them living in Unit 41. All the occupants in that apartment representing AVANATH employee and the occupants are gang stalking. They're all going to prison. And I want to be clear, they act with impunity. License 34809 handicap. I'm going to document the rest of these, and the images that you will see, the fake sun is far departed from any location over the front, seen through the screen door over the top of my head, like I'm capturing, where the entity's having engineer light ricocheting off of the window, appearing flat on the ground. Where this fake sun is over my head and I'm facing G Street, there is no sun that would be in that position. It's not even over the building, it's not near the building. I turn around so you can see me at a distance away from the building, units 33 through 64, showing you that they are all stalking where they live. And you go to prison for living or working at a facilitating venue. I also want to document, while I am capturing images of the Latino male gang stalking with license plate 9NMB968, engaging in what is terrorism via directed light, exhibiting their demon possession is a terrorist act, which is a threat to an American citizen. It's also a means of psychological torture, while it is in furtherance of the conspiracy to murder someone that you want to falsely depict as crazy because you're gang stalking them with engineered light. You're going to be prosecuted for that. I'm capturing an image of that, and the entity is also gang stalking by plane. They're flying on, not on the side that the Ontario International Airport typically does, which would be when I'm standing, they are flying in a position south of the apartment, which is where I always capture them. And that's what I documented as the pattern. The Ontario International Airport gang stalks with commercial planes, and they're always south of my person, no matter where I am in Ontario. The entity is flying in smaller planes and did so in a smaller white plane on the right side of my person, and did so while I was documenting license plates and reading the license plate at the front, and describing the demon that's going to prison with the two dogs, the female wearing the beanie. License U.C. RISLA. This is just to describe the environment where I'm documenting license plates. I'm documenting the AVANATH employees who are going to prison, and I'm documenting the demons in units 33 to 64 who are going to prison. The entire property is full of domestic terrorists who are all going to be prosecuted. All right, and this is indicative of what is the people of the state who are acting corporately on an ongoing basis. Okay, never taking a pause, never taking a break, never leaving position as an entity. They are maintaining its tag team. It's like double Dutch of maintaining presence in the path. They're stalking as an entity. They're also stalking with activity. That's amplified. None of it could ever be heard inside of the apartment, however, but the city of Ontario that is gang stalking in an effort to harass and terrorize in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, they amplified the sound of traffic in the apartment while they're monitoring. That's a demon. So if you're curious about how Satan behaves, Satan is acting via license third party 7X82385 is gang stalking in the path, while another demon is a means of audible activity. That's demon possession in real life, okay? And the people of the state are going to prison for it. So this is the entity that is defeating itself. This is the kind of psychological torture that the demon in unit number 55 is practicing, while stomping and throwing her body and beating the ground and engaging in all manner of exhibiting mental illness because the demon is monitoring evidence. Remember, that's occurring under a fake sun, and that's the ongoing impunity of the government. Mayor Paul Leon does not actually give two craps about remaining as mayor. That's what this evidence shows. And I want to be clear. The state of California, the federal government, it is with pleasure that we remove demons, mentally ill sex offenders like Paul Leon, who, by the way, has stayed well beyond what any person that even is not a demon-possessed gang stalking sex offender should remain, over 20 years. And he's been engaged in criminal activity the entire time. Okay, license 9EXJ932. They're all gang stalking with that means of audible amplified activity. But these demons who are being documented, and they all know it, exhibit hostility while they amplify activity, while they stalk with impossible light activity, moving all across buildings and across none of that is sunlight. And they're all under a fake sun, and they're all in your path already threatening you by doing so. And while you document the demon possessed who are mentally ill, these are demons they're mad because you're telling on them. And they engage in terrorism, which is psychological torture even more. You're going to prison for that, okay? License F50FIVE. They're all gang stalking together. License DP077XV, that's handicap. License 47657M2. And the fake sun follows me back toward unit number 51, where Tracy Banks is gang stalking, and so are all the people of the state, with the to-be disbanded demons of the Ontario police who have no intention of, they don't want to remain as a police department either. And that's exactly what the evidence demonstrates. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The entity is going to produce the identity and all of the activity regarding the heliport and flight of the helicopters, because they're going to prison and mental asylums. 7YEH777. The people of the state in units 33 through 64 are going to prison. And this is who the demon in 55 is gang stalking, engaging in psychological torture on behalf of. All right, this is the entity that is arriving, as you can hear on podcast, flying right over the building. while I'm inside of the building. This is nothing that's going to cause the building to vibrate. The sidewalk is not shaking right now. There's no loud sound that's causing my ears to bleed. The entity is stalking in the path because I'm documenting the people of the state, and this corroborating evidence is putting all of those third parties in prison. All right, the entity is doing is a fake sun that's no longer over the front door of building 51. As I open up that front door, this is in no position that would ever aim sunlight through the peephole. That's how you understand what is a gang stalker. That is criminal conduct that AVANATH Capital Management is going to be civilly and criminally accountable for. Not only are the residents gang stalking while AVANATH is profiting, not only are the employees gang stalking while AVANATH is both paying them a salary and also doing so in concert on behalf of the state in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder and kidnap. They're also doing so while their contractors, those who come landscaping, are gang stalking, those who come onto the property are gang stalking, and those they are also doing so while they're engaged in federal stalking together. The entity is doing so in a specific environment where they walk around in shade and engineer light that's in the shade, monitoring. And doing so while they know my panties are down, doing so while they know what I'm doing on my phone, on my laptop, what I'm publishing onto the internet. And that's why you have what is targeting the building where I'm at, where I'm walking toward, as though they're engaging in that under any lawful circumstances, and they're not. The entity is engaging what is gang stalking at the Starbucks, gang stalking at the Ovid Family Community Library, gang stalking while I'm walking down the street, gang stalking as a matter of documentation that the world can witness on the internet. And it's not a distraction from all the demons in units 33 to 64 who are going to prison, corroborating what is the evidence to disband the Ontario Police Department and remove audible activity and remove the demon Mayor Leon. Pay attention to the timing. What you'll hear on the podcast is me mentioning the demon Paul Leon. I want to be clear who takes personal pleasure by virtue of the audible activity. This is real-time response by demons. Paul Leon is a demon-possessed criminal who is currently in a position of mayor, and he is very well aware of the the criminal use of the helicopters in the city, which costs a lot of money, by the way, where the entity cannot afford and does not have the resources and the manpower because it's been misused on criminal conduct like surveillance, which I'm exposing. When you have actual security, emergencies like Los Angeles County does, and they don't have the manpower and the training in order to handle that because they're wasting it on the resources like the city of Ontario is. And as I've already documented this gang stalking in Los Angeles, so you can understand a lot of the reason why there's the lack of resources and the inability, the ineffectual handling of an emergency such as the fires in Los Angeles County, all of whom are gang stalkers, okay, that are demon possessed who are targeting. And as I reference Paul Leon, you're going to pay attention to the timing. The demons who are gang stalking, that are the Ontario Police, they are already stalking in the path and they communicate a threat. That's also why Paul Leon is out of office. Pay attention to the timing. Everything that I am stating is subject to surveillance, and Paul Leon is a demon-possessed gang stalking sex offender, and so is Mike Lorenz in the Ontario Police Department, who fly over in relevant position under a fake sun. That is a cartoon circus-like environment where you're stalking in helicopters, and that demon's name is going to be documented, produced, because they're going to prison. They're going to prison. All right. The entity is doing so on an ongoing basis, keeping under surveillance everything that I say and do. This is impossible light that's appearing in the shade in the hallway of the building. The significance of having engineer light that's appearing underneath a staircase. This is all demonic, where the entity is flying over in helicopter. It's audible activity and crossing a path, and it's also occurring while the mayor is being documented. The mayor is being documented while I remain inside of the apartment. The mayor is being documented while the fake sun remains over this building for the duration of the day. The mayor is being documented while the police department is gang stalking with the people of the state. And this is the evidence putting every single last one of them, including the gang stalking immigrants, they're going to be deported. And that includes anybody working for the Ontario Police that's not a natural-born citizen. They're going to be deported. ICE is going to treat them like every other immigrant. That's a terrorist that has no business in the United States. That's audible activity, relevant positioning in the specific environment, which is never going to be the cause of sunlight shooting through the peephole. It's never going to vibrate the building. It's not going to be heard in the depths of the apartment either. And it's also occurring in what is the supernatural environment. You see engineer light that's occurring, framing the door, shooting through the peephole, occurring in the middle of the living room, across the ceiling, and then it's also ricocheting off the windows. Because this is where you're looking at the evidence of what is federal group stalking and monitoring, presence in engineered light, and doing so on behalf of the demon in unit number 55, license 5WUB715, as the document entitled WSA-The People. I want you to pay attention to how the fake sun remains directly over me, over the front door where I go back over, where I return to after I'm capturing images of the fake sun remaining at the front gate, and that is in real time. As I move, the fake sun moves. I want to be clear, this is where the fake sun is at at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the evening. All right, and at that end of the building, that's where the fake sun is at 8:25, 8:30, 8:45 in the morning. This is where the police department that is engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring is gang stalking using helicopters, which is the basis of federal prison. The entity acts exhibiting mental illness while they are facing such federal penalties, and they are under no circumstances deterred. That is the ongoing criminal purpose to murder and kidnap. That's why the police are gang stalking, and that's why the people of the state are gang stalking with the state. And they also do so, which is evidence against the demon, that is Paul Leon, who shall not remain, and no mayor shall remain in office for this criminal system, which is a massive sex offense, speaking to the pervert, speaking to the psychopath, speaking to the demon, that is Mayor Paul Leon, who shall not remain under any circumstances in office, and no one under his leadership, which has overextended over 20 years of this public corruption that he knows all about. He's been financing the unemployed at Woodside Senior Apartments are engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. I documented on podcasts all of these license plates. The entity is filled with what is 144 units of gang stalkers, and they do so on behalf of the state that flew over in helicopter, corroborating evidence, and that's going to be used in federal court. And it's the prosecution of an entity. So while you cross path, the entity is crossing path. The state is using one person, the state is using all of them together at the same time, and that's why you have a rising sun at one address. It is the supernatural environment, and there's no sun in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, contrary to what I documented at this time of year, where the LAPD were gang stalking in helicopters. Okay, and again, Alvarado Gardens is at 1806 North Alvarado Street. You're looking at all the means of what is light activity. The entities keep light in the shade while you're gang stalking in helicopter. They're doing so day and night, and also there's sex offenders that are monitoring my genitalia, knowing when I am disrobed and disposed. All of my private activity is a matter of public information, in addition to every name that I reference, like the sex offender interested in my genitalia, Paul Leon, who was going to be, I want to be clear, he is not accepted from federal prosecution. He is threatening my life while the police are the means of federal group stalking and monitoring, as I referenced that demon. That's a basis of prosecution, not just removal from office. I want to repeat that. It's the same with Mike Lorenz. The entity is engaged in a pattern of conduct as an entirely corrupt entity, and that population acts on behalf of that entity. The elderly are engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, not able to hold a job, not able to pay their rent, but fully energized and capable of engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring. And that is, again, the demon in unit number 55 is the ongoing chief means of amplification. It is psychological torture, like you see the Ontario police engaging in via helicopter, like you witnessed on the podcast and on video, the amplification of what is audible activity of a demon that is pacing in relevant position. It's not traffic. Neither is that the normal volume of traffic. This is P.O.C, ongoing documentation of impunity. It's 12:36 p.m. This is crossing path under the fake sun that remains over this building until the end of the day, rising and setting in alignment to me. And while they do so in plain view, it is the prosecution of the people of the state, in doing so at all ages in the same exact specific environment, and doing so on a cane, doing so while you're taking your blood pressure medicine. You will be going to federal prison and treated like the animals that you are, regardless of your age. Okay, this is a massive sex offense, and it is the means of domestic terrorism and psychological torture in the U.S. Alrighty, it is currently, again, you are looking at the disregard of the law, which is exactly what the demon in number 55 represents. Gang stalking in your face is merely walking outside of your apartment and doing so in defiance of federal law. They're not even free to live here. This is the malice of the entity that is engaging in a covert system of surveillance. While I'm documenting the entity that is maintaining that pattern of conduct, this has nothing to do with sunlight. This is criminal surveillance that you can identify inside of the private space, which is the apartment. And this is the same light activity that you saw in the dark while Tracy Banks was gang stalking physically in the path, because she's gang stalking now. She's just not physically here. You're acting as an entity and is aware of everything that I state. In the same way, while I reference the mayor, the demons who are gang stalking with the mayor fly over in helicopter, and that's supposed to silence. That does not silence. What that equals is federal prison. All right, and that is also the evidence that's removing that gang stalking, sex offending, demon possessed criminal by the name of Paul Leon. I'm going to repeat it again. It is the evidence against the people of the state. As you document the specific environment, you document the government, who, by the way, proves it while they are gang stalking in that specific environment, flying higher than the sun. They flew over higher at a higher elevation than the sun. Pay attention to the evidence. These are demons who are very highly unintelligent and so focused on me, so determined to engage in threatening me that they are threatening their own liberty. They are going to prison. I want to be clear. This demon in Unit 55 and all the demons that I'm documenting on license plate, I'm going via license plate. They are one entity. That's just a sample. I just wanted to get on podcast today. All of those who are gang stalking with the demon in number 55, every minute, every move that I make, everything that I publish on the internet in real time, the entity as of 7:30 when I was documenting in the dark with Tracy Banks and this demon above has not ceased to engage in ongoing psychological torture. And as I step outside to document, the demons are gang stalking and heightening that threat, doing so with the police. Again, I want to be clear. The demons in units number, these are the demon possessed. They're domestic terrorists. They're engaged in psychological torture. This is the state that is acting vicariously. Okay, what you need to know, practically speaking, these are the demon possessed. They are exhibiting it through their presence in the environment, and they're facilitating behavior in that environment, which is accomplishing criminal monitoring, which is surveillance that the government that is engaging in that system via helicopter, while the means of amplification and impossible light activity remains both inside and outside, you are witnessing the system of federal group stalking and monitoring. While the government is directly engaging in it, the government is also vicariously engaging in it through the people of the state. And that is, again, the demon in unit number 55, license 5WUB715. She is going to a mental asylum, maintaining ongoing ceaseless criminal conduct. That is gang stalking where you live. You're going to prison. She is going to a mental asylum by virtue of the mental illness exhibited through her very disturbing and necessarily unstable mindset while she is gang stalking a person based on that person's movement, based on that person's whatever it is that I happen to be engaged in as I engage in it physically, what I'm doing on my communication devices, and then increasingly doing so. Meaning the more that I document, the more that I think about it, the more that the demon engages in that very disturbing conduct. And this is while the entity knows that they're going to prison. This is while the federal government is has an open ongoing investigation, which the Ontario Police Department, that is the state, treats with impunity. That's going to be noted upon the removal and exposure of people like Paul Leon, Alan D. Wapner. The Ontario International Airport is led by the demon possessed that are the corrupt government body that are going to be removed. There's no coincidences here. You're understanding, you will be familiarized with the demons that maintain more than one position of leadership in these corrupt cities and counties that are engaged in criminal surveillance in the state of California, as I've documented in San Bernardino County here. It is currently, again, 12:41 p.m. I want you to see what you saw this morning during the 8 a.m. hour, engineer light coming through the peephole, and it's the same condition while the fake sun remains over me as I leave the front door, walk to the gate, and walk back to the front door, capturing a group stalking by the entity in helicopter, and you're looking at what is the impossible. Not only is the sun going to hover over the top of a roof, it's not going to do so for the duration of the day, and it's also not going to be the cause of sunlight shooting horizontally into an apartment. All right, that's the pattern of conduct, however. This is where the entity is stalking in helicopter, and that is the ongoing open engagement by the government to threaten and intimidate and psychologically torture an American citizen. Okay, that is the police department that's going to be disbanded. Entirely illegitimate. They are a gang member. They are a gang engaged in sexual violence. They're obsessed with my genitalia while they practice witchcraft, and they engage in incriminating the entire state of California while they do so, in conformity to a well-documented P.O.C. Why is that? Because the Pasadena Police Department that are gang stalking under the fake sun when I'm in an entirely different region at no time has the sun in the same position over this building while I'm capturing that fake sun over me in Pasadena, while the Pasadena police are also captured gang stalking me. All right, this is evidence, just one example. I have documented the state engaging in the pattern of conduct, the hallmark of gang stalking, psychological torture through helicopters. All right, and that's what the entity does in order to intimidate. That is to obstruct justice. That meaning they're not only going to prison, they're going to prison for a prolonged term. All right, and that's shared by the people. It is currently, again, 12:42 p.m. This is Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street in Ontario, California, where the scientific phenomenon of a fake sun rising and setting remains present, which is the evidence of a population that is engaged in what is stalking together corporate invasion of privacy, psychological torture, and doing so with impunity, showing what is the means that needs to be studied and exposed, what I have documented and supported by evidence, the mental illness of the demon-possessed who are engaging in domestic terrorism in the state of California. I want to go ahead and get this for you really quick before I end this video. This is gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport. That's amplified audible activity. As I reference Alan D. Wapner, Terminals 2 and Terminal 4 are no planes would be hovering and be heard inside of the apartments, being amplified in volume. They're also flying at a higher elevation than the sun. This is the same P.O.C. Possessed are you're dealing with those that lack self-control. You're dealing with those that are literally ticking time bombs at Satan's order. They will engage in harming others, including harming themselves. The entity is currently placing itself in federal prison and mental asylums. That demon that is gang stalking in a plane over here, this demon gang stalking from the Ontario International Airport, doing so because they're triggered, because I referenced the demon Alan D. WAPNER, who is going to be removed from office, who is a demon-possessed sex-offending gang stalker, who is currently the president of that corrupt venue, the Ontario International Airport, where I have already documented the fake sun remaining over my head on Omnitrans. Alan D. WAPNER, the president of the Ontario International Airport, and is the head over the Omnitrans bus. That's not a coincidence. This is, again, exposing massive public corruption. And by the way, targeting is shown while you are under the fake sun, flying higher than the fake sun that's hovering over the roof, and it remains here all day long. Also, the timing with which, that's what the Ontario Police did, as I referenced Mayor Paul Leon. This is, again, the mental illness is exhibited by that ongoing criminal endeavor that is to its own demise. All right, so you're obsessed, you're so focused on me, you continue engaging in that which is to your own demise. The federal government, nor is the public, ignorant or disillusioned about what they are witnessing. And this is speaking to, again, the system that is designed to murder and kidnap American citizens while seeking to falsely depict that American citizen. That's not going to work here. So you're witnessing what is, again, a barbaric conduct toward American citizens that have no defense, no system to enforce their rights, and no voice to be heard. That's why you're going to prison. That's why you're shutting down the airport. That's why you're being removed from office. That's why you're being disbanded and permanently removed from law enforcement. It is currently, again, 12:45 p.m. That's why they're all going to prison. They're all going to prison. Okay? It is currently, again, 12:45 p.m. This has been P.O.C. That continues on an ongoing basis. Okay, I did capture substantial video ending right now at 12:45 p.m. The Ontario Police Department, as you could hear on the podcast, and you're paying attention to the timing. In the same way that I'm documenting the demon, as I'm documenting inside of the apartment, the chief means of amplified audible activity. This is the mentally unstable third party who was demon possessed. And that demon possession is relevant legally because it is the inspiration, the cause. Perhaps it can be studied. I advise that it should be studied because it is a basis of expounding upon mental illness, which affects decision-making skills, that affects other people, because the demon-possessed are targeting innocent American citizens and seeking to conspire against them to murder and kidnap them while they practice a satanic targeting system. It is witchcraft that the government practices amongst the demon-possessed, and that mental instability is a matter of evidence, and so it is necessarily bringing into the controversy the mindset, the disturbed mindset, which is manifest in the decision-making and the rationales and the behaviors that the entity engages in. And it includes, as I document you, stalking my physical movement, very disturbing conduct. The entity will engage in more of that very disturbing conduct the more that I think about it, that is, the more that I document it. The demon-possessed are monitoring your thoughts. Literally, my documentation is also proof of that. Nonetheless, this is, again, bringing into the physical in order to prosecute in a court with what is tangible evidence, what the demon-possessed are doing, psychologically torturing someone. That's not documenting. Perhaps they're just crying about it. They're just thinking about it. They're ruminating over it. They're disturbed by it. They're writing in their diary about it or something. In other words, you don't even have to say anything about it. The demon-possessed are monitoring your thoughts and what they find you to be thinking about, or if you seem to be disturbed by it, scared by it, terrified, this is the purpose. The entity will do more of it. And so I am documenting it. And as I document, the demons engage in that pattern of conduct. And it is occurring in all methods of audible activity. Remember, a demon gang stalking in an apartment building is just one method. Just like you can see in video, the demons gang stalking in helicopter. That's another method. A very, very costly method. People go to prison immediately for gang stalking in helicopters. That is the highest threat posed by the state that is communicating directly to the targeted individual because of the specific environment, because of the entity's pattern of conduct of engaging in domestic terrorism by targeting with light, targeting with amplified audible activity, and targeting by presence in the path. It is not ambiguous. It is not vague. The entity is engaging what is targeting you through the means of gang stalking in a helicopter in that specific environment, and does so also through a means of targeting, which is what it is that you are thinking about. Documenting. I happen to be documenting a demon, a sex offender, one who is interested in targeting someone that is quote unquote chosen, which you will see on this fake pastor's website where he has a whole submenu for the chosen. It is not a coincidence that he happens to be a domestic terrorist leader, gang stalking, a believer in Christ Jesus, that is myself. and doing so while for over 20 years in the city of Ontario. And I've been documented. And he also happens to have a side business of acting like he's a pastor. He is nothing close of a pastor. This is an exposed demon, and what is going to be a removed criminal from office for engaging in domestic terrorism with the corrupt police that he uses as a means to threaten my life and safety and well-being, while I reference that demon that's engaged in Title 18 federal stalking. There are no coincidences here, and you will swiftly find yourself in the subject of a federal prosecution as I document mayors like Paul Leon. Okay, this is what the entity is engaging in the specific environment, where the entity is gang stalking in helicopter flying at a higher elevation than the sun, where the entity is gang stalking in commercial airplanes flying at a higher elevation than the sun that remains stationary over the same apartment building. The apartment building where Linda Reyes is the manager working for AVANATH Capital Management Company, and she's going to prison. She's going to prison for not only the video that I just captured, the wealth of evidence speaking to federal group stalking monitoring ongoing and facilitated by AVANATH Capital Management, LLC, headquartered in Irvine, California. That's Orange County, a gang stalker. And also Woodside Senior Apartments is filled with third parties who are fully engaged in the pattern of conduct. And they're also gang stalking with the demons pacing all around Woodside Senior Apartments, which I also captured on podcast and on video. Traffic is criminal presence in the path, in the specific environment, the malice of the entity. You are not free to live at, to visit, to be present, to be in relevant position to the targeted individual that the state is conspiring to murder and kidnap, which is why you're being gang stalked. Nobody is free to do anything that they are openly doing on camera and on podcast. And while you continuously do that, that is bringing into the controversy your mindset, which is already at question upon engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring. It is further brought into controversy and question, and necessarily something to be rehabilitated, to be addressed while you are incarcerated, while you engage in more and more of that very damning conduct toward the demise, for no legitimate purpose, of an innocent American citizen that the government has no business stalking. No warrant, no probable cause, no existing law to substantiate, support, or make legitimate gang stalking. And that's exactly what they're doing. And the evidence proves that, and the federal government already knows it. The police are exhibiting mental illness, and so is the demon whose face I don't have to see. Paul Leon, his mental illness is exhibited while he is gang stalking with the entity, in a position of leadership, very much aware of, and is more than merely derelict, while millions of dollars are wasted on criminal surveillance, using helicopters, using the entire police department, who has engaged in a pattern and practice of kidnapping and criminal defamation, sexual assault and battery. Theft of property, while they're engaging what they literally did on video under a fake sun amongst engineer light in concert with the people of the state. It is exactly what the demon in unit number 55 has been repeatedly doing while I am documenting very serious federal offenses. I want to be clear. While you continuously engage in terrorism, it's going to be appreciated under federal law. You fly commercial planes into the Twin Towers in New York. You gang stalk American citizens in the United States and any state. You are a terrorist, and you're going to be treated as such. This is what the entity is doing now, frivolously. Doing it for the whole world to witness. And that's exactly how they're going to be treated, like the barbarians, like the Neanderthals, like the violent, sex-offending stalkers with severe mental illnesses that they actually are. This is what they're doing. It is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. The license plates that I document represent a sample. The entire property, it's 144 units at Woodside. Woodside Senior Apartments represents what? Merely what the entire city is engaging in. That's why the entire city will never see the sun, because it's sitting over the apartment building in front of me, over my head at apartment 51. Any sun that's captured in the city of Ontario is further corroborating proof that it is a specific environment, because it is impossible that there is more than one sun, and it is impossible that it is any other place rather than where I'm capturing it squarely above my head, through the windows, reflecting off the windows, creating what is light underneath the patios, and through Tracy Banks's closed bedroom windows, while this demon is engaging in somersaults and throwing her body and stomping and banging and engaging all manner of hammering and whatnot, like she's bowling inside of her apartment room while she cannot get a job and pay her rent. I'm referencing the demon in unit number 55, license 5WUB715, who is going
to a mental asylum for the rest of her life. She's not getting out. And that's because of the size, the weight of the threat that she poses to herself and that she is determined to pose to American citizens who happen to also engage in documenting, that is enforcing their rights, and does so with the government that shares in that exhibition of their mental illness, arriving to the demise of the entire city, stalking in helicopters and planes. All right, there is no, like I stated in the video, there's no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 where you are at that elevation, hovering over the roofs of Woodside Senior Apartments and rising in elevation at that location. You're not coming from the San Bernardino airports, hovering at that elevation, disrupting quiet enjoyment inside of the apartments, that you're hearing it, that you're flying at and second of all, it's in the specific environment where you are hovering over the venue and you're still flying at a higher elevation than the sun that's stationary all day long. This is understanding what is the pattern of conduct. And this is speaking to the obsession by demons who are surrounded by evidence, and they continue. That's exactly what the demon inside of Unit 55 is engaging in. While she is taking upon herself the ongoing criminal maintenance of amplified audible activity. And since she does so, she's going to a mental asylum. While Tracy Banks is physically outside of the apartment, she remains a part of the entity, and she's being documented for everything that she is knowingly engaging in, living at a crime scene. While you go to the grocery store, you're still engaged in the pattern of conduct. The rest of the city is gang stalking while the sun is stationary over Woodside Senior Apartments. The absence of the natural environment is the direct evidence that you are gang stalking in that venue. The city of Ontario is the facilitating venue. In the same way that Woodside Senior Apartments is a facilitating venue in the city of Ontario. In the same way that the state of California is a facilitating venue. You're looking at the big picture, not getting lost in the forest. This is what the entity has been doing all morning long. I captured the engineer light shooting through the peephole in the dark living room. The living room was dark and it was gray skies, and you can see engineer light shooting through the peephole as I put my hand up to it. You can see it in the dark while I turn the lights out. That's impossible light activity. It's direct evidence of criminal surveillance and what is an abnormal environment that you are ignorant about when you're just looking at it with your naked eye. It is speaking to when you are paying attention to it. This is the malice whereby a government that is engaged in what is a demonic targeting system. It is the practice of witchcraft. It is the sacrificing of an American citizen unto Satan. The city of Ontario, Paul Leon, who has the audacity, and that's exactly what Satan does, wants to appear as an angel of light. That's why this demon is a fake pastor. Okay? That's why this demon is in the position of mayor to facilitate targeting American citizens, especially those whom he knows follows Christ Jesus for real. Not for funsies and for money like he does. All right, I want to make sure that I document the entity that's gang stalking by a helicopter, and doing so as I document by name, Paul Leon. That's a threat that the mayor shall be subject to a prosecution for. You need to understand how this works. As you document the entity that's keeping you under surveillance knows exactly what you're stating, and you make you make a concrete threat, both express and implied, and reasonably so, while you engage in more of that criminal conduct in a manner that is reasonably calculated to threaten any person, let alone the ordinary targeted individual. When you are understanding and recognizing the bigger picture, it's in the specific environment, it's targeted based on the timing, what it is that I'm talking about. It's in conformity to the P.O.C. There's no accident or coincidence when I am documenting a plethora of cities gang stalking in helicopters in an environment that is irreconcilable as you isolate the universe to that specific address, that venue, and also as you engage in a grand juxtaposition of all of them together. There's never any sun that's in Monrovia, let alone over the courtyard by Marriott in Monrovia when it's rising and setting at Woodside Senior Apartments. And that's exactly what I continuously document. It is the prosecution of the state. So that's the significance of the video. I'm going to include the video in the podcast so you will hear it, because I'm going to, I'll go ahead and include it beforehand so you will have already heard it now, but I'm doing analysis afterwards. This is what I've been documenting for the duration of the morning. I want to make sure that I'm stressing that, because it's relevant to how long you're sitting in prison. It's relevant to whether you're going to prison or an asylum. It's relevant to how draining the damages that you're liable for. I'm referencing AVANATH Capital Management. All right. And I want to be clear. Linda Reyes, she's a third-party group stalker at facilitating venue Woodside Senior Apartments. She is a gang stalking manager at a facilitating venue. You don't have a right to be at the venue. They're gang stalking. They're engaging in it with the government, who arrived in video and on podcast, and has done so for a term of years. She's going to prison. All right. You are gang stalking as an entity. through some third party that doesn't even live here comes on the property grounds, through the state that flies over the property engaging in the elements of monitoring, through the entity that lives around and remains around. Ongoing criminal surveillance is remaining underway at the 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue. Woodside Senior Apartments is gang stalking through them. Its presence in the path. It's beyond just the demons that are around me at 33 through 64. Those that are living in units 33 through 64, however, they're going to prison. They're going to prison for their close presence in the path, for their ongoing obsessive engagement in the elements of monitoring on a 24-hour basis, and doing even more so as they are documented. As I capture them on video and I walk outside and I'm getting them walking around, I'm getting the demons that are delivering groceries to the entity as I am capturing video. That demon who's license plate, let me go ahead and document that right now, because he's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. While they're monitoring every move that I'm making inside of the apartment, that demon does so anticipating my opening the front door. And you're not coincidentally crossing path in engineer light under the fake sun while you're delivering groceries to a third party. This is the pattern of conduct where the demon possessed are monitoring your genitalia, monitoring your every movement. So you're looking at it underway while a business is making money delivering groceries. That's a third party delivering groceries to another third party on behalf of the state. That third party's license plate, I'm going to go ahead and all right, that third party's license plate, that is gang stalking while I am walking out. That is license 9JMS 931. This appears to be a Latino male. Reviewing my evidence. 1 second. This appears to be a Latino male wearing black sunglasses, black short hair, black bottoms and a black jacket, and blue and black with white bottom tennis shoes. He's carrying, it looks like 2 or 3 bags from Walmart, 2 bags from Walmart in particular. And so the only 2 demons that are upstairs are the units for, and his basis for crossing path with me are the demons, both of them going to federal facilities upon prosecution. The demon in unit 56 and the demon in unit 55. This is a means of crossing path and doing so under the fake sun at the same time that I open my front door, where the fake sun is hovering at my front door. And as I document on my podcast and as I document on video, that fake sun makes an abrupt departure, whereas it's stationary all day long while I do not leave the apartment door. It immediately moves, which is what I'm capturing when I'm in traffic. It's what I'm capturing when I'm in a different city. It's what I'm capturing when I'm in a different state, at an entirely different building where the sun would never coexist. And that's relevant to not only time of day, duration of time, but also time of year. And that's as I've documented 2018 up into the present 2025. Okay, this evidence is of scientific value, and it is something that you can show even in the city of Ontario, but let alone I've gone far outside of the city of Ontario, showing you what is an unmistakable pattern of conduct that includes the entire state, not just the city of Ontario, that's going to be thoroughly prosecuted for domestic terrorism and psychological torture. All right. So again, that license plate of that third party that's gang stalking by a means of a corrupt business that is profiting through its gang stalking contractors or employees, whatever business it is. It could be Walmart. It could be a lot of these Ubers. They all deliver. It's a third-party facilitating venue. Not only is the business a means of identifying a third party, but the demon itself in that license plate that I'm going to recite again, crossing path with me as I open the front door and I see the fake sun and I see the engineer light inside of the apartment. This is again license 9JMS 931, documented at 12:13 p.m. in images, crossing path, monitoring me while I am documenting it, and doing so, committing a sex offense. In doing so, I'm in a private space, and doing so on behalf of the state, who arrives in the video for purposes of communicating an unlawful threat. And they're communicating that threat with 9JMS 931. The people of the state are threatening in concert with that state. That is, the state's going to prison or mental asylums based on the evidence for gang stalking in helicopters, and the people of the state are going to federal prison or mental asylums like the demon in Unit 55 for gang stalking with the state in helicopter. I want to be clear. This is why the employees, including Linda Reyes, this is the gang stalker that's working at the front office at this corrupt facilitating venue, is going to prison. She's engaged in ongoing group stalking with the police on an ongoing basis. That is intolerable facilitation. You're going to prison, okay? That is both, again, working or living at a crime scene, which is the facilitating venue. It is axiomatic. You are going to prison. That's what Woodside Senior Apartments is engaging in. This is what Speaker Company is engaged in, and that's exactly how they're going to be treated in an identical manner under federal law. It is currently, I want to document 1:03 p.m. The documentation that I also want to make sure that I capture is the people of the state, the employee that is gang stalking with his occupants who are adults, gang stalking with children. You'll see that in images captured as I exit as I exit the unit number 51 at 12:13 p.m. This third party gang stalking with the employee that's going to prison, license 9CZC059, who is also going to prison for gang stalking, living. In other words, systematically, repeatedly engaging in the pattern of conduct and doing so with the Ontario Police Department routinely. They're going to prison, and they are also in custody of minor children, which is directly relevant. And I want to be clear, everybody that I'm documenting, the city is still monitoring right now. The fake sun's not going anywhere. The engineer light is continuously cycling as I show you in pictures. It's gradually moving across the patio glass doors. The patio blinds on the inside, and on the outside, like it is now, it's coating the patio glass into the end of the day where the fake sun is setting in alignment to my person inside of this apartment. And that's over 4 hours from now. 3 hours. It's 1:04 now. The entity is keeping the fake sun until the end of the day where it's setting in alignment to me, ricocheting off the patio glass door, capturing it in images while I'm inside of Tracy Banks's bed. All manner, in other words, of circus-like conduct in a specific environment where nothing other than psychological torture is underway. And I want to be clear, while the entity is, this is speaking to, again, the reason why I'm stressing it is because it's speaking to how you are treating domestic terrorism, which is exposing the appetite for murder and kidnapping and sexual violence. The more sure and conclusive the evidence is, because that's exactly where we're at with regard to the evidence against the people of the state and the state of California for prosecution for federal group stalking and monitoring, gang stalking, the more disturbing, that is psychotic, the criminal activity becomes. And so this is where you have the entity incriminating the entire police department. Jason Knighton has been awaiting federal prison, and it doesn't matter if he put in his resignation to the Ontario Police Department years ago. It doesn't matter if he is now with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department or he's gang stalking with the LAPD. It doesn't matter if he moved to Montana, he's going to prison. Okay, this is the criminal system that he was engaging in when he kidnapped me and engaged in an assault and battery, which the entity engaged in an assault and battery. Everything that is underway is ongoing as an entity. The entity is monitoring my genitalia. The entity is molesting my breasts with engineered light. The entity is gang stalking with the police using helicopters. The entity is stalking on an ongoing basis with amplified audible activity via the demon in unit number 55. The entity is acting with impunity and malice and disregard with the regarding the fact that they're going to be prosecuted for domestic terrorism. That is no small thing to be a prosecuted terrorist in the United States. The entity lacks appreciation of that, and that is also what the federal government shall address. Domestic terrorism and it being appreciated under federal law. All right, it is currently, I want to be clear, 1:06 p.m. And this is P.O.C. with regard to federal group stalking and monitoring. And as I remain subject to it, it is an ongoing massive sex offense committed by government and committed by the people of the state who are commercial actors, such as AVANATH Capital Management. It's going to be a documented and prosecuted sex offender. The entity is engaging in sexual violence while monitoring an American citizen, which you are doing as you are engaging in it vicariously and facilitating. That is providing a venue where the government is engaging in the system. You are civilly and criminally liable. All right. And you are also going to be prosecuted as a sex offender. And it will be noted the impunity with which you practice sexual violence while seeking to make money. All right. The entity is doing so in real time as I document that 1:07 p.m. ongoing amplified audible activity. The video evidence, which you can hear on the podcast and which you will see published on my website. See, thisisthepoc.wordpress.com. Again, the website is thisisthepoc.wordpress.com, and the YouTube channel, which is evidence, publishing the video documentation, which is going to prosecute the state. And everybody at Woodside Senior Apartments are going to be prosecuted as domestic terrorists. The demons in units number 33 through 64 and the demons who are AVANATH employees, they're all going to prison. Every single last one of them. And they continuously act with disdain to that prosecution. They're un-American and sexually violent conduct in concert and on behalf of an entirely corrupt and perverted mayor, Paul Leon, who gets his thrills out of threatening American citizens who enforce their rights and use the corrupt police department, a gang. It's nothing other than a bunch of gang members, in other words, who are stalking in helicopters because they have access to that which they will not have access to anymore. All right, that's how you get this series of facts and circumstances, and a federal prosecution is serving to resolve all of it. All of it, every angle of it, every aspect of it. Understand that you are documenting the entire city. And I've gone to a lot of cities. I've covered the county. In other words, I've covered Los Angeles County. I went to Orange County. There is no sun at the Best Western off of Newport Boulevard at the entrance of the Best Western. Neither at 9:30, 10, 11 in the morning, nor at 4 o'clock in the evening, daylight savings time or not. Where the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Costa Mesa Police Department are gang stalking. That's identifying that pattern of conduct via helicopter, while the fake sun's over my hotel room, while the fake sun's over the top of my head at that entrance, where the fake sun remains from morning until the end of the day. They're all going to prison, and the entity acts with ongoing disregard for the laws and the Constitution. That is speaking, not only are you a criminal, but you are exposing what has been an ongoing secret disdain. You secretly hate the Constitution. You secretly hate American citizens. You hate their enforcement of their constitutional rights. And you also hate those who exercise their constitutional right to religion. And that is because I am a believer in Christ Jesus. That's really why Paul Leon is targeting. And he is targeting in concert with the people of the state, and he's targeting with a bunch of demons who are stalking in helicopters. The criminal pattern of conduct goes directly to those who are in position in government in that city, and it's exposing what's going on in leadership in the state. Because you're not ignorant about what's going on, reasonably so. You are not ignorant, and you're not actually ignorant about what's going on with regard to the necessary amount of expenditures regarding keeping planes and helicopters gassed up, keeping the police, fire, and ambulance in a position to maintain stalking with activity creation using the sirens. You are necessarily engaging in you're sitting around stalking, engaging in knee-jerk conduct, activity creation, with simultaneity to whatever it is I do at the drop of a dime. You've got gang stalking, demon-possessed pilots who are fully capable of flying them into Twin Towers, by the way, killing hundreds and thousands of people. That's what happened in New York on 9/11. That's exactly the condition of those that are gang stalking commercial planes from the Ontario International Airport. Every single airline is being documented while one demon flies a commercial plane in the specific environment. That's what the entire airport is engaged in. And they do so while I identify Alan D. Wapner. Let me say it louder. Alan D. Wapner is a demon-possessed sex offender who is hostile and threatening my life and safety and well-being, while demons flying planes from the Ontario International Airport do so as I identify that domestic terrorist leader. He will not remain in office, and he is a very heavily engaged terrorist in San Bernardino County, threatening American citizens, gang stalking through the airport, gang stalking through the public transportation lines, like Omnitrans. Not a coincidence. There is also no coincidence when you're gang stalking in a specific environment and doing so as I document you. And while that is happening on your watch, while you're being documented and you're surveilling me, that's not an exception. I want to be clear. That's the very formula for a federal prosecution. Sirs and madams, you shall be prosecuted. You are not exempt. This is conduct by an entity, and that entity shall be thoroughly and comprehensively prosecuted as a matter of justice, while you use the unemployed and the elderly, fully energetic, to engage in gang stalking on your behalf, and you have all the wherewithal to withstand a federal prosecution for it. And where the facts and circumstances substantiated, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. Derek Williams and Mike Lorenz have a lot in common, and it's not a coincidence with regard to the gang stalking by the Ontario Police Department and the ongoing routine kidnapping. They are not under any circumstances helping the people. They are engaged in ongoing evidence against the people. The entity is being sliced, and it's literally imploding, and it's being dissected and breaking this system apart. The state acts directly and vicariously. The entity acting vicariously presents evidence against the state. The state acting directly presents evidence against the people acting vicariously on its behalf, while they are all demons gang stalking together. Okay, I want to be clear. It's currently 1:12 p.m. This is documentation of domestic terrorism and psychological torture. All right, the podcast and the video evidence and the images provide the whole picture. Okay, and what I've been documenting in the document entitled WSA-The People, minute by minute, moment by moment, ongoing impunity. The more that I document, the more psychological torture, which the mayor is engaging in, which the police department who are gang stalking in helicopters, so that you can be sure that's exactly what they're doing, while the demon in Unit 55, who can't keep a job, can't pay her own rent, but can keep the energy level, never sleeping, never abandoning position above me in the apartment, in the living room, on the couch, and is gang stalking every single moment, every move that I make, every time I take my clothes off in the bathroom, maintaining position with the rest of these sex offenders. They're all going to prison for a massive sex offense. Demons like to force you into their demonic orgies when you have not consented to that, when you have no desire to be a part of their sex acts, while they practice witchcraft, which is criminal conduct of a sexually perverted nature, sexually motivated, criminal surveillance in a bathroom. And then they engage in more psychological torture while they're gang stalking you necessarily in order to do so, because they are upset that you're exposing the fact that they're obsessed with your genitalia. That's exposed mental illness, okay? That's the behavior, in other words, of psychopaths. You have a population of them. Yes, they engage in harming themselves while they are focusing on sacrificing an American citizen. That's exactly what the demon-possessed do. It is an ongoing threat to national security. This is under no circumstances hyperbole. And this is exactly what's going to be appreciated under federal law. It is currently, again, 1:14 p.m. It's Saturday, January 18, 2024. This is documentation of state action. While I remain at facilitating venue, Woodside Senior Apartments. I want to be clear. AVANATH Capital Management, Woodside Senior Apartments, all 144 units who represent the people of the state. It's not just Woodside Senior Apartments. I've documented the neighborhood who's being prosecuted in relevant position. But again, the entire city is being prosecuted. All the gang stalking immigrants in the city, you're out. You are being documented, and you share an impunity. And I know that because no matter where I go, I cannot escape the specific environment, which speaks to all of you in Ontario who are gang stalking. And I've been documenting Ontario as a matter of supportive evidence since 2018. All the gang stalking immigrants, you're out of this country. Okay? And enthusiastically, you will be removed from this country. Enthusiastically. All right. The entity is doing so on an ongoing basis with impunity that the demons of the city of Ontario, the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Police Department, the people of the state, and the demon in unit number 55, the people of the state continuously communicate as an entity, that ongoing impunity, which is used to prosecute each class of gang stalkers. Okay. Each department of gang stalkers. All right. All of that population of gang stalkers in the city. It is currently, again, 1:16 p.m. This is P.O.C.